Sam Quayle, welcome to Liverpool. Welcome to the studio. Welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here. Yeah.
How's it going?
Good, thank you. Bit chilly today, but made my way across the Pennines without fault, so yeah.
Let's pretend we didn't walk to the studio together. So we have already done this awkward introduction, but you are the director, or one of the directors, which we'll get into, at Hyperact, which is a product development consultancy for startups, scale-ups. Your introduction on LinkedIn was quite long, so I'm trying to shorten these introductions to get straight into the conversation. So I didn't want to read your introduction to you. So
sure,
just give us a brief, like, what's the origin story? What's the comic book version of you at the moment?
Of me or of Hyperact?
You first, and then we'll get into that.
Me first. So I guess, how did I get here? I started my career off about 15 years ago in design, predominantly working at kind of web and brand agencies. And about 2014, I moved to an Agile IT consultancy called Valtech. And I was one of the first designers in there. Was heavily involved with a lot of the early government digital services transformation worked with a lot of big financial services companies. Around the time when they were starting to ask more around, we need some UX UI support, we need some help with service design, we need some help with user research. So I helped kind of build that team up from the ground. And I think that's where I was really properly exposed to Agile ways of working and Agile teams, some great Agile practitioners over there and thinkers. And I guess the challenge at that time was like, how the hell do you fit design into that, very cyclical, iterative process? And we tried lots of different models and we kind of iterated it and got that to a good place. I was at Valtech for maybe 5 or 6 years. And started to look for a new challenge and found Infinity Works, who were kind of up and coming, very quick growing consultancy based in Leeds. At the time, they didn't do any kind of design. And the stars aligned. I kind of pitched them building a design practice and was there for 3 years, built that to a team of 50 across service, design, user research. And I think it was there really that I got more of a taste for working with startups and scale-ups. So we did quite a lot of work with Starling, we did quite a lot of work with Cinch and a few others. And I think that to me was the really interesting work where you could affect more change. Of course, working in big public sector digital transformation, right? It's great. And sometimes you can have some good successes with it. But it's always quite a tough environment, particularly as a third party supplier. So that was really where the idea for Hyperact came. I think we were seeing an increase in demand for product across the board. We were starting to sell more to chief product officers, people with product in the title, where always traditionally had been IT or chief technology officer. Infinity Works was acquired by Accenture, so I stuck around for a year there, took over their UK technology design practice before taking the leap to form Hyperact, and that was about 2 years ago. Haven't had a lot of sleep since, and here I am today.
Yeah, we'll get into that, mate. Yeah, I'm excited for this. I think I've had a few content designers, a few UX, maybe 1 or 2 UX UI people. But from what you've described, you sound like more of a product designer.
Yeah,
which is if you've read Transformed by Marty Kagan, then product designers are a key pillar in that. But we'll get to that. So I was going through your LinkedIn posts. This one stuck out. Again, I've tightened it up slightly because it was quite long.
Yeah.
And the long bit is the bit that you'll probably get into. But top-down transformation rarely sticks. Why? Because change comes from the ground up. It's the sum of the daily actions, behaviors, and norms of your organization. The longer you take working your way down the layers, the longer it takes to see the results, and the less amenable individuals are to change how they work. What does that mean?
Big statement. I guess even though we've been working more with startups and scale-ups, particularly over the last couple of years, I think one thing that's kind of surprised us is they actually have a lot of the same challenges that much more established, larger organizations have in terms of having to transform their way of working. What got them to their Series A and how they've built product up to that point doesn't necessarily work when they need to scale up. So I've been around lots of different flavors of transformation, in inverted commas. Seen a lot of failed transformation. I think some of the most successful repeatable patterns are where it does start at the bottom. It's the very small changes at a team level in terms of getting them to ship things regularly, getting them to test the quality of what they're doing, then once they can just do that and they've got a decent flow going through the kind of delivery system, then inevitably the question becomes around, well, is what we're doing actually having an impact for users? So how do we do good discovery? And then moving up layer, okay, we can understand, what we're designing for people, we could test it, we could ship it quickly, we can get feedback. Then it's kind of the next layer of, well, what's our strategy and what's our roadmap and how can that be more informed, more evidence-driven? How can that drive a better ROI for the business? And I think working up in those layers as opposed to we're coming into an established organization, we've got this grand plan, we're going to organize a bunch of teams, shift them into this different space. And it takes a long time for it to kind of permeate down into actual results. I think whenever it's done from the ground up in kind of smaller teams, that to me is where it has the biggest impact. I think in reality, you have to do both, right? You can't just do it purely at the ground up, particularly in large, complex organizations. You need the backing of the C-suite. You need sponsors that you can, even just project the success that's happening on the ground. Sometimes a lot of great work happens and it doesn't kind of percolate up the organization. So I think in reality, you kind of need both, but I think a lot of transformation, a lot of the rhetoric around it, a lot of the literature, a lot of, frameworks and processes and consultancies that kind of sell it, it's often this very kind of top down, we're going to shift the deck chairs around, we're going to, start planning in this way or whatever. And for me, it's much more effective when you can show the results of what you're doing with these small changes before moving up the chain.
Yeah, I like that. And was there any did something happen for you to write that, or just there
must have been something. No, I think it was probably just a response to a few bits of things that I'd seen online, and also just it was one of my kind of growing beliefs, having worked in those environments for 10 years, of seeing that pattern repeat itself, and seeing where the unsuccessful transformation kind of comes in. And I think probably stoked by Kagan's latest Transform book as well. That's got people thinking a bit more about transformation in the context of product as well.
I've just bought 3 copies of that for 3 leaders in an organization I'm working with. More to sort of back up what I'm saying as an extra little voice. Although it absolutely hammers agile coaches.
Yes.
That's what I've been brought in to do. I'm like, just ignore that part.
Yeah.
He's talking about the rest of them, not me. So if my mum was watching this,
yes,
she's the kind of person who may not, know what I'm about to ask. So to someone who doesn't know, what is design in tech?
Design in tech. So I guess design in tech, you'll hear it referred to as a bunch of different things: UX, UI, digital product design, digital service design, whatever it is. I think people roughly grasp the concept of design and what it is. Always revert back to there's a phrase that kind of breaks down design and its different meanings. So it's design is to design the design of design. So it's a kind of noun, verb, noun, noun. So if we think about design in tech as being the first noun, like the field of design or what particular field that you're looking at, moving through to the verb, the actual action of designing things, right? And then you're designing the design, which is effectively, the plan, whatever that is. So whether that's a mock-up, a prototype, a blueprint, and then the final of the design is the end product, is the outcome. Now, design and technology is unique because we have this unique, wonderful distribution channel called the internet, right? Which means that you can ship design, you can deliver finished outcomes to users incredibly quickly across the world, and you can do that process, extremely rapidly. And I think that kind of changes the process of design in technology because you can utilize that, and you can utilize the flexibility and the rapid feedback loops that, if you're designing a building, you just don't get.
Yeah.
So digital product design is all about trying to expedite that feedback loop. It's obviously fitting into different ways of working, and Agile plays a big part of that, particularly in the organizations that we work in. But at its heart, design is about giving form to a solution that solves a problem. And there's, two big parts of that. There's the giving form to the idea, however you do that, right? Whether it's, like I say, prototyping, wireframing. But the problem part of it is really the most important. You're designing something that fits a problem space, that fits the context. And the context is user needs, it's business value, it's the market in which it operates in. So, yeah, I guess that's probably a long-winded, slightly more theoretical answer.
That's
but
right.
it's design. If I was answering to your mum, it's designing stuff for the internet. It's designing apps, right?
People have a lot of opinions about design, whether that be designing things for the internet, apps, interior design, studio design, clothes. What does good design look like to you from in the context that we're talking about product? And apart from the obvious ones, what are some good examples?
Yeah, so I don't know. I tend to usually think about good design as a bit of a pyramid. I think there's a bunch of good reference material on what good design is. I think Dieter Ramsey's original good design principles are like still very relevant today. I kind of simplify it. I think the first layer of good design is you've got to solve a problem. There's got to be value there, and I think understanding that problem better using techniques like jobs to be done and good user research helps shape a much better design. So you've got to get that first level. If you're not solving a problem for somebody, or you're solving it in a way that doesn't quite fit their mental model, you're kind of back to square one. I think once you've moved up that level, this is maybe a little bit more contentious, and where probably product and design blur together a little bit more, is around the feasibility and viability for the business, right? Okay, there's a problem here that we could solve. We think that we can solve it, but there's lots of different ways that you could solve that, and it might not be feasible for your business to do that, right? It may take forever. You may not have the resources. It's going to be incredibly expensive or incredibly complex. So you've kind of got to get to that layer and kind of validate that next, right? Can we actually support this? Can we deliver it? The next layer is really, I think, what most people think about design, which is around, is it intuitive, right? Does it fit users' mental models of how they want to interact with this thing, whatever it is, whether it's a product or a service? Can they complete the task that they need to? Can it kind of meet their jobs to be done in a way that they kind of expect to do? And then the final kind of tip of that pyramid, cherry on top, is, does it delight, right? So is it engaging? Is it a nice experience? Do people come away with positive emotions after using it? And again, that tip there is probably the bit that is the most challenging to do in Agile ways of working, because it's always around, how can we slice this thing as thinly as possible to learn about it, to ship it? But what invariably happens is you'll deliver a V1 MVP of this feature. You'll be lucky if you get to a V2 of it. The V3, which the designer had kind of in his mind or his or her mind all along, rarely gets done. Yeah. So it's about how do you also get that kind of level of delight on it? And that's different in different contexts, right? That's less so important in I guess, more utility-based products and services, things that people have to interact with. But I think particularly in B2C, that's super important as well. So yeah, I think that would be.
And who's getting it right at the moment? What apps do you use and go, oh yeah, I like that? There's a lot of companies, doing really well, right? I think Monzo always gets held up in the UK. It's like really great design all the way through, brand, tone of voice, user experience, solving problems for people. I think they do a great job. Company Linear in the US, which is kind of workflow management for digital teams, really nicely
they put a lot of emphasis on the craft of that user experience. And I think as time goes on, the level of user experience that people expect from products, whether that's, the apps that they use in their personal life on their phone versus the ones that they have to use day to day as part of their jobs, right? That bar is always rising. And I think we'll see more push towards the top of that pyramid as time goes on. Notion, I think, have done a really good job. There's a good CRM called Attio that are doing a really nice job of like really allowing you to heavily personalize and customize the CRM experience. I think those would be a few picks off the top of my head.
Cool. When you go into an organization, or when Hyperact go into an organization, what gives you that sort of bad feeling, or
bad
you
vibes?
Feel like it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle? What are the signs people should look out for based on your people's experience?
It's interesting, this. I think with experience, I've definitely learned to be kind of less judgmental. Some of the things that I probably would have thought more of a red flag early on in my career, I'm starting to learn to dig a little bit deeper, not just taking those on surface value, and kind of understand the problems and the constraints that people are operating in. I think is this going to be a successful partnership, successful relationship with Hyperact? I think just getting access, right, to the people, the tools that you need. I think when you're kind of brought in and you're kind of, you're the consultancy, you're a bit kept to the side, you can't join. We like to be really fully immersed. And that sometimes takes time and takes a bit of trust. And, you deliver some stuff, they get to know you as people, and, the barriers come down. But that's, usually one of the first things that I think, if that's occurring, we know it's going to be more challenging for us to do our best work for them. And we'll usually try and help resolve that. I think you can generally feel, the vibe on the ground from the people that you're working with, and how they feel treated within an organization. I think the other kind of big one is just inability to learn from past mistakes, right? And perhaps that mentality that creeps in of, we've tried this before, this isn't going to work here, those types of attitudes. But I think generally, we don't come in with a, really prescriptive, this is our ways of working, right? We have a kind of target way of working in our head that we know to be kind of best practice, having tried and tested it and refined it over, 10, 15 years. But you've always got to be pragmatic, and every organization is very different. Everyone has different constraints that they're operating in, lots of different stakeholders and people involved and personalities. And ultimately, our industry is about building trust. And I think if you come in there and say, you're all shit, this is how you should be doing it, it rarely works. And it's rarely true either. No kind of one model fits all.
Hello folks, sorry to interrupt this video, but if you have got this far, it would really help if you did subscribe to the channel. Because it's face-to-face, it makes convincing people a lot easier to travel up all the way to Liverpool to record in this lovely studio. So, like I said, please subscribe, and thanks for watching. So that nicely leads us into Hyperact itself. What is it? Who's involved? Are you the face? Like, are you where did it? You alluded briefly to how it was born, but
yep.
I mean, dive into that and tell what have you learned so far about growing a, I don't know, consultancy, small business, however you describe yourself.
Yeah, sure. So we kind of position ourselves as a product development consultancy. We started 2 years ago. So as myself, co-founder Dave had come from Cinch and a bunch of other organizations. We met probably 6-7 years ago. And I think when we met in a team delivering, it was actually the Department for Transport Blue Badge service. So it was a complete ground up transformation for them. And I think we just got on really well and had the same values, same kind of work ethic and ways of working. But the way that we got that team to work, I think was really kind of laid a blueprint of like, this is how we think teams should work in the future. So
can you allude to that without
so
giving away all the secrets?
We were doing, continuous just-in-time discovery leading into delivery. We were doing a lot of user research, a lot of engagement. We were able to ship quickly. We were really digging into the fundamental problems that we were solving. We were obviously looking at how do we make this more efficient, cost-effective for the local authorities who distribute the blue badges to people. And we just got into a really nice pattern of, the whole team engaged in understanding user needs, understanding user research, being able to ship measurable improvements quickly. And I think it kind of really hit the sweet spot. So back to Hyperact, we set up in kind of autumn 2022. We are around a team of 15 now.
Based in
Leeds and Manchester. We do have people who work for us a bit more remotely. We've got clients in London, mostly in North, client in Sweden as well. And we work across product design and engineering. So a lot of our engagements kind of span from dedicated teams. So client might come in with a problem, maybe that's we need to replace, renew this product or service. Can you help us? We've got a new product that we want to bring to market, and they'll give us kind of the outcome for us to own and bring in the right kind of shaped team to deliver that. And at some point when we've either got that past first release or kind of future improvements, we'll transition back to the team. We do quite a bit of augmentation, so clients will come to us and they'll just need good people, right? I need a couple of engineers here. I need a QA. I need a product designer for this team, and we'll kind of provide them. And then we also do kind of more traditional over-the-top consulting. So assessments, enablement, coaching, strategy work as well with clients. So we're spread across 6 at the minute. We've managed to kind of work almost exclusively with our kind of target market, which is very much kind of tech companies. We do occasionally stray outside of that. And that's kind of where we are.
What's been the challenge? So for they can't have all been
all roses. We've had a lot of challenges along the way, and I think that's probably one of the bigger learnings. Things that I've learned to deal better with is, running a business. It's highs and lows daily, multiple, and I think in the first few months that freaks me out a little bit. Definitely got better at kind of riding that wave and kind of understanding that a little bit more and expecting that a little bit more. There is always kind of challenges. I think, the market pretty much since we set up the consultancy is been on a bit of a downturn, right? There's lots of layoffs. There's lots of the types of companies, our target clients that are struggling to raise money because of interest rates, that are prolonging that are focusing a bit more on profitability. But I think we've, in some respects kind of benefited from that. We've been, small and nimble during that time. And I think, we'll be in a good position when the economy kind of recovers and there's a bit more demand out there in the market.
Yeah. Where do you see it going, or where does the three of you three? So
there's two co-founders of the business.
Where do you two see it going?
I think we're just really interested in doing the best work possible that we can with our clients. Right, where it goes in the future, we don't know. Obviously, we'd like to grow and we'd like to scale it up and we'd like to have a bigger impact and, work with even more established brand names out there. But at the minute, it's about kind of building our early credibility and case studies. And I think that's the other thing, that I'm incredibly proud of so far is not only have we got to work with the companies that we wanted to, we've got fantastic case studies out of all of them, right? Yeah. There's been no engagement that we've done so far that we deem as being unsuccessful or client would. So that gives us a great deal of heart in terms of what we're doing. But yeah, like I said, for now, it's just, continue to grow, continue to do good work for people and see where that takes us.
Where did the name come from?
A long, boring Google Doc of
there
was no like immediate spark. I think it was one of the ones. I think it was Hyperactive first, and then we figured out that Hyperact was available as a .co.uk. Somebody's still trying to sell us hyperact.com for about $50,000, and we're
Yeah.
like, maybe not yet. But yeah, we get a lot of good feedback on the name. I think it lends itself to kind of energy and action, and that's really what we're all about.
Cool. There was something I wanted to give you the space to explain the business, but something I would like to dig into a bit more detail, because I think it's quite hard for people who are new to it, is when you spoke about user research.
Yes.
What is it, and how? What are the best ways to do that? Because I hear it's we're going to do some user research.
Yeah.
What is stand outside a shop and interview people? Like, what is the best way to go around user research specifically?
So I'll give you a very real example from this week. Tuesday morning, I was stood in a very busy Wagamama's kitchen with a heating engineer, watching him use one of the products of our clients, just to kind of see what it actually looks like in the field, right? I think particularly in kind of B2B SaaS, usually the people using the product are not the buyers of it, right?
Yeah.
And so often there is a disconnect between what they need versus what the buyer actually wants them to do. So user research comes in lots of different flavors, right? You've got qualitative research, you've got quantitative research. At its heart, it's about building empathy and understanding the people that you're building products for.
And again, for the mums out there,
yeah,
who just like watching two handsome blokes, what do you mean by qualitative and quantitative research? Just for people who like,
very simply, quantitative is numbers, it's data. Qualitative is subjective. It's how people feel, what they think about a product, right? And you need to look at both, and you need to balance both. There are lots of different axes of user research around kind of more exploratory research, et cetera. But I think for me, again, if you're starting from a position of, we don't really do user research here, we might send out our annual customer success survey, and that's as close as we get to the end users. I'd always, massively encourage people to go out there and spend time with people using the product, see the whites of the eyes, see them in the context that they actually use it, and you'll learn so much. And it's some of the most rewarding. I don't get to do a lot of that these days, but whenever I do get the chance to do, I always jump it. I always try and encourage the whole team to get involved in it, even engineers, because I think sometimes engineers are those with the perhaps least attachment to the end problem in that whole team, right? It's usually products and design, user researchers that are involved in kind of gathering that information and insight and playing it back. So, it can be a bit demotivating when you're just kind of there, right? I pick up a ticket, I write some code, I ship it, don't really know what happens either end. So try and encourage the whole team to be involved in it, trying to do it on a regular basis. Whether that's, gold standard, once a sprint, once every couple of weeks, you're speaking to users. You might just be doing some exploratory stuff around a new proposition. You might be testing prototypes and doing it a bit more somewhat scientifically, doing more kind of traditional usability research. Here's a task, use our product, go all the way through. Or you might be out there trying to really understand their jobs to be done. But I think for me, it's a critical part of that product development process. And I think all the best companies in the world and best incubators in the world, all their advice is get out there and understand the problem, understand who you're building it for. And you could do it very cheaply, right? You could do more guerrilla style research. You're just out there on the street, you go to a coffee shop, you sit down and buy somebody a cup of coffee and ask them to use your product and just get some feedback on it. But there are lots of tools out there that can make that a lot quicker than it used to be, right? Particularly kind of post-pandemic, we kind of switched from this world where we're encouraging our clients to kind of build their own user research functions and regular cadence of bringing people into their offices. Then all of a sudden that shut down overnight. So it's like, okay, how do you adapt? How do you do this remotely? Really, really critical part of the product development process.
Cool. Any particular people love tools, mate. So any particular ones I can link into the description.
There's a bunch. Maze is really good. User testing, Dovetail. There are some really expensive ones. I'd like to think that you can do a lot of it, with pretty basic tooling. You can record a screen and you can write some notes, and there's a bunch of AI tools that'll help you do that a lot more quicker and efficiently. And then we usually always end up in a Miro board pulling together insights and grouping and theming and digging a little bit more.
Cool. Is there anything you've changed your mind about recently that you never thought you would? And that could be personally, professionally, spiritually.
Big question. I'll lead with the work answer, and I'll try and think of the background of anything a bit more personal. I think over the last few years, an appreciation that I think distribution trumps product. So just having a great product and a great team. I've seen a lot of companies, a lot of teams fail because they weren't able to market, sell it, get it into people's hands efficiently.
Yeah.
And I think I see a bunch of stuff of, first-time founders focus on product, second-time founders focus on distribution. I've definitely seen that, and see some of the companies that we're working with now very early on. One client we were working with in Manchester, a startup, they had a kind of sales and marketing engine that was probably 8 or 10 people when they got there. They had no product and engineering team. They'd outsourced to an agency the first MVP. They brought in us to kind of get that, basically redesign, rebuild that from the ground up, make it more scalable. And it was at that point that then they started kind of hiring their own engineers. And I think, doing it the other way around, you've got to, have incredibly patient investors, a large round to build a fantastic product. Not everyone can do what the likes of Figma did. Mm-hmm. So I think focusing on that distribution, focusing on how you're actually going to sell this, how you're going to get that into people's hands, which I think a lot of co-founders that come from, more of a tech background don't necessarily have that skill set. So perhaps seeing a bit more success of those that have got that in their locker, that understand that sales and marketing process, that distribution process better, definitely helps. And I think that's something that's probably flipped in my mind, less so build it and they will come.
Yeah.
Type mentality over the last couple of years. Cool. And probably secondly, slightly devastating realization that Arsenal probably won't win the league this year.
Is there a question I haven't asked you, which I should have?
That's a good question in itself.
Just call me Michael Parkinson.
I guess one which I haven't thought about, but it's an interesting something kind of in the back of my mind of the overlap in product design. Like why and where is that? Why is that happening? What is that overlap? It's interesting, right? Product became more of a thing. Over the last 10 years, it's become much more prevalent. Design was always, we need a seat at the table, etc., and products really kind of eating our lunch in that regard. But I think there is so much overlap between the two areas. And going back to that kind of like original definition of what is design, yes, it's given form to a solution, but that fits, that solves a problem. Product is very much around understanding that problem, but probably with a bit more of a commercial intent to it. So a bit more, what's our market? What do the business want out of that? And then kind of managing it through. But I think to do both of those things, again, coming back to good user research, an iterative process, there is a lot of overlap in both those areas. So I think you will find an increasing number of designers moving to product, as I've kind of done, like certainly lean more into it over the last 5 years. And I think there's a very much an overlapping skill set there.
Cool. Thanks for answering your own question.
Thank you. Yeah.
Where can people reach out, contact you or the business that you're, open to, if you're open to people doing that? Where
absolutely.
Go?
Yeah, on LinkedIn. Probably not as active as my co-founder, as he regularly nudges me to be. But yeah, feel free to send us a connection request. Hyperact.co.uk. We've consistently been writing a lot. right? Trying to get down our kind of thoughts, our views on the world, our perspectives into our blog. There's usually kind of 2 or 3 posts a month from there. I think we've got 60 plus articles on there now, covering everything from product engineering, strategy, design. So if you're interested, have a read. Love to hear people's thoughts. They're probably in the main 2.
Cool.
I've sacked off X now just because it's become a bit of a cesspit. So LinkedIn and the website.
Cool. I think we're done, mate. Thank you for coming on.
Good. Yeah. Thank you very much for having us. Yeah. Great to be here.
I wish you all the success. And thanks for sharing. I think people get a lot from that. The title will be "What is Product Design?" So if you're YouTubing that, if you're Googling that, then hopefully this podcast will come up. People will consume it, and it'll send loads of people your way.
Fantastic.
That's a dream.
Yeah. Thank you very much.